The Home Secretary has called eco activists vandals and thugs. And this is coming out of some of the latest action in which they literally stopped sick children, sick babies getting to hospital. And that's not hyperbole. There was a father actually saying that. He was saying he was trying to get a sick child to hospital. So they just keep hitting new lows. I think Braverman's right about this, as was her predecessor. Um, And I think that Mark Rowley, as the new Met Commissioner, really needs to recognise how much public anger there is about this. He said he's frustrated. He conceded that his officers shouldn't be handing out tea to them, but that doesn't go anywhere near far enough. He is still saying that there isn't enough disruption to be classed as significant disruption. So that's I just think it's insane that he's just playing by the book and he's sort of like, well, it doesn't quite meet the threshold, so we'll just put up with it. It's a disgrace. So, Mark Rowley, please understand that the public is sick of this. Um, I'm not even a Londoner, I don't even drive, and they frankly infuriate me because I think that they're extremists holding society to ransom. And I think that the previous video I mentioned the state of the government in, well, we have a problem here where you have a group, a minority of extremists, and I believe they are extremists, who are basically just doing as they please. Another video showed an activist throwing paint all over the headquarters of Aston Martin in London, of James Bond fame. Now, the irony, of course, is paint is often oil based. So these people are so dogmatic and so arrogant in the way they go about things that they don't even see their own hypocrisy. In fact, I saw a meme, and it would be funny if it wasn't for the fact that these people persist. And it showed oil protesters starter pack, hair dye made with oil. A lot of them wear hair dye, glue made with oil, shoes made with oil because plastics that all comes together. iPhone made with oil, all the components in an iPhone. Um, and they always have that to record their own actions. Graphic tee, t-shirt that is made with oil, and that didn't even mention the fact that they have fluorescent jackets that are often oil based, and there's oil extract in those. Incredible. But you try pointing that out to them, probably they would respond something like this: "Oh yeah, we're all hypocrites, but we'll still do it anyway." They are thoroughly obnoxious. They're some of the most obnoxious people I've ever come across. I've often spoken about the problem of antisocial behavior in this country. Um, youth gangs and people just making their neighbor's life very difficult with with just boisterous drinking, loud music, and all that sort of stuff. Teenagers harassing pensioners. I think that's a very serious problem. Now, these criminals are a problem in a different way. They're just vandals. One of them was jumping on top of a police van the other day. The police standing around doing nothing. Um, Now, someone I know made a conservative guy I know made the point that if this was a group of Millwall supporters, right, lying on a row because they were upset that their team had watched after a match, you could be sure the Met would be sweeping down. There'd be a strong chance of that happening. I do think that. So when Riley says, "Oh, it doesn't quite cross the threshold," what he needs to understand is that there is this perception of inconsistency. Why is it that these predominantly middle class, and let's face it, that's what they are, um, activists, criminals, in my opinion, get away with this so much? Now, I know there have been arrests, but very often it comes 2 hours late, and it leaves the public in a situation where they're having to get into physical altercations. Um, I think I didn't mention this in the previous video. I think if any member of the public is charged with assaulting one of these activists, then a jury should be very, very sympathetic to that person. Obviously, beyond like going over the top. I'm not saying that someone should go and beat them to a pulp. I'm not suggesting that. That would obviously be going too far. Just as a scenario, if someone was dragging them off the road and their hand got injured because they were stupid enough to glue their hand to the road in the first place, and then they tried to sue the person, well, that's going to cause serious abrasion, but it's entirely their own fault. Entirely their own fault. Um, so they might then try taking legal action against a member of the public. I think that under these circumstances, if the police aren't going to do their job, the public should be protected from prosecution. There should be mitigating circumstances in that scenario, um, especially in a case where someone is trying to get a sick relative, a sick child, or an elderly parent to the hospital, or maybe a woman is in labour and her husband is trying to get her to hospital. You know, the lives and safety of your family come before the needs of eco terrorists. I really think that there needs to be a much more protection for the public in order to know that they won't be prosecuted if they take action. Um, in fact, they should be commended for doing a service that the police will not do, or at least they're too late to do. I mean, there have literally, this isn't even a case where they can't say, oh, our resources are stretched, because they have been filmed standing around, literally wondering what to do as these extremists are on the ground. Now, I mentioned terrorists. I don't think that's hyperbole. Remember, every terrorist group starts off with direct action, and they already fit the definition of the 2000 Terrorism Act. Um, so I really don't think it is hyperbole. They make this big thing about we're peaceful, but it's not peaceful. It's not peaceful deliberately seeking to cause stress to the public, deliberately harming people, literally harming them, by stopping them getting to essential appointments like hospitals. That's not peaceful. And I'm sick of the left wing press sort of condoning them. The Independent had this article saying this is something about this sort of activism is a good education point. They condone it. James O'Brien on LBC has condoned it. The left, not surprisingly, they have a long track record of condoning criminality if it suits their agenda, that is. But make no mistake, this is pure criminality. And I think the public are royally sick of it. Um, I mean, there's a practical side because if you're throwing paint over a building, someone's going to have to remove that. I think, by the way, they love being arrested. They see themselves as martyrs. So when I say the police should get involved, I'm talking about be heavy-handed, proportionate, drag them off the roads. But I think they should be arrested, but they wear that as a mark of honor. So I think accompanied with the arrest, they should be proscribed as extremists. I think they should, if they're employed by any sort of company, and it's a misconception that they're all unemployed, by the way, that's not true. But if they're employed by any sort of company, there should be pressure on that company to fire them. Is this the sort of person you employ? Make their life difficult. I really, really believe that. I think that's vindicated. I think that's justified. If they think they have a right to hurt ordinary people, then their lives should be made difficult. Um, I think the pensioners among them should have their assets frozen. There's a lot of things that can be done. Um, Although I don't know what the legal avenue to that would be, there'd probably be a lot of red tape around that. But I think there's a lot more could be done. I think they should definitely be made to clean up the damage. That's something that hasn't happened so far. It's always left to council workers. Make them clean up the damage, humiliate them, and if they refuse to do it, um, you know, give them a community sentence actually because I honestly think if they are sent to prison, I think they deserve it. But if they're sent there, they honestly see themselves as political revolutionaries. So they'll kind of think they're Nelson Mandela or whatever delusion that they put into their heads. I think it's important not to martyrize them. I think actually it would probably be more practical for this lot to give them 1,000 hours of community service rather than a week in prison. Um, it's probably more practical. Um, you know, make them feel the weight of what they are doing. Because if they're doing community service for 1,000 hours, that's strenuous, it's tedious. They will feel that. A week in prison, they just get to feel, oh, look how brave I am. I'm a political revolutionary. They have said that they're going to continue doing it. So they've shown contempt for the law. They've shown a contempt for legal proceedings. Therefore, the approach must change. Um, I think they should be made up. made to clean up the damage. I think they should be prescribed. The government needs to be seriously looking at that. Um, there's other groups that are not actually violent in that they're not throwing punches or throwing bombs, but they're still very dangerous. Look at Hizb ut-Tahrir, the Islamist group. They poison young minds with Islamist dogma, but they always are quick to say, "Oh, we don't condone terrorism," but they're still dangerous and they're prescribed justifiably. I really, really think it is high time that these groups are prescribed. Of course, there'd be legal bureaucracy. You'd have lefty judges would try and stand in the way, and lefty barristers. But the government needs to push it. I think they would have public support. Um, and there might be one thing that could actually redeem this Truss's government if she shows that her government's going to um, take this seriously. As for their demands, the thing is, it's pointless trying to have a debate about climate change with them because they've proven that they don't really care about that issue. Because if they did, I've already mentioned the oil extracts that are in what they use. But if they really cared about the issues, they would be working for UNICEF. They would be doing something productive, like supporting green business. So I get really annoyed when people say, "Oh, but maybe they're making a point. The planet is dying," and they actually try to justify these methods as if it somehow is going to help the problem. But I guarantee you that some middle class brat gluing their hands to the road in London will not help a single flooded villager in Pakistan, or a farmer in Ethiopia, or a pensioner in the UK, struggling with fuel poverty. So we need to be clever about this approach. I think simply arresting them and jailing them, although they deserve it, they'll see themselves as martyrs if that's the approach. So arrest them and book them for the offence, which is criminal damage, trespassing, and all the other offences that they're guilty of, but also couple that with prescribing them as an extremist group, forcing them to clean up the damage, and then couple that with extensive community service. Treat them like the criminals that they are. I really think it's no different than antisocial behaviour, except this lot hide behind a veneer of like they've no remorse at all. Sometimes even antisocial yobs express remorse, like they were drunk or something, but this lot are completely remorseless. They know that they're stopping babies getting to hospital, and yet they still do it. That says everything you need to know about these people. They don't have good intentions. They're criminals, and I personally have total contempt for them. And could I keep my cool with them if I was in a situation where I was trying to get to an urgent appointment? Honestly, I couldn't guarantee it. I would probably be one of those guys dragging them off the side of the road. Even there, people need to be careful because if you have women, a lot of them are women, and you have men, then they can accuse male citizens of things. So, uh, women, step up. If you see women activists, you need to, get in there and drag them off because the police have made it clear they're not going to do much about this. So unfortunately, it is left to the public. But I think the public needs to be protected.